Let me ask the million dollar question now, or maybe bigger than million dollar. What would make you more likely to consider a new IT service partner that you haven't worked with before?
If it's a brand new vendor, it is the value proposition. Like we engaged with the new vendor here at Arctic Glacier right when I first started around some AI and analytics work. And they were really interested in learning about our business. They spent time in our ice plants. They spent time with our distribution teams. They spent time learning how our business would work. So I think really that willingness to learn and to listen and to offer up solutions is going to attract me versus some blind LinkedIn, I can save you $1 bazillion, et cetera, that we always see. I don't really like that approach. It's that relationship building.
Welcome to CXO Spotlight, powered by Flywheeler, where we explore the strategies, challenges, and innovations shaping the future of business and technology. I'm your host, Chirag Khanijal, co-founder of Flywheeler, and our guest today is Doug Saunders, Chief Information Officer at Arctic Glacier Premium Ice, where he's leading digital transformation in an industry that produces over 2 billion pounds of ice annually, serving 75,000 locations across North America. Doug was recently honored as corporate winner at the 2025 Florida Orbie Awards and has a track record of implementing complex technology solutions that drive business value. Welcome, Doug. Welcome to the show, and congratulations on your recent win.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's awesome to be here.
Let's get right into it. We have lots of questions and we want to get some of the hard questions answered today. So tell us about one of the biggest challenges for CIOs today is bringing both technical and business stakeholders together and define a unified strategy, what we call a North Star. How do you approach this planning at Arctic Glacier?
It seems simple on the surface, right? Blocking and tackling. So if a sports analogy, you got to have an offensive line, you got to do these things. A lot of people just overlook it. And so I think the biggest thing is how does really IT align with the rest of the strategy of the company? So really at Arctic Glacier, when I started, we sat down as a leadership team and really just outlined what are the most important initiatives that we have to do. So we kind of de facto created a project management or a PMO process to really help guide us of what's important. Started out, kind of a large list, 40 plus projects that would really drive value within the organization, and narrowed that down to 7 or 8 that would bring the most value in a certain calendar year time period. So now we're all aligned at the SLT level, and that's great, but it's the next step is to get everyone aligned down through the organization. What we did was we took an approach from town halls and communication out about what our important initiatives are, about what really was important to Arctic Glacier and what would make us successful. I think the biggest thing is building trust, right? How do you build trust within the organization? You have to be transparent. You have to collaborate. Seems simple, but it's a lot harder than you think. But it took us a little bit to get going. But once we did, we really had a good set of core objectives that the whole entire company could work through.
But it takes a lot of convincing between different teams, especially with the business teams, because you're interfacing with them and you're IT's champion to the business, right? So what kind of proof points or evidence do you find most effective when trying to get the buying in from business teams on the technology initiatives that you have?
So I think the biggest thing is just value to the company. So whether it's top line, bottom line, efficiency type revenue, I think those are the proof that as an organization, we always strive for. So we've had a lot of initiatives in AI, IoT, and analytics, and some we didn't proceed with and some we did, but really it was kind of a shared group approval process or recognition that yes, these things are important. And through this whole, PMO process that we have with the SLT group, it meets once a week. We have regular staff meetings as well, obviously. And this is really kind of the focal point. And so these 8 or 9 projects that really driving quite a bit of value for our organization are very important. We communicate that up through the board. We communicate that down through the organization. There are some things that aren't going to initially show you an ROI. Think of upgrades that need to be done, like an ERP modernization. Sometimes that's not really going to show a great ROI over 3, 4, 5 years, but they're really kind of foundational for other things. And so I think it's just really important that you have a lot of communication and trust with each other, because there's a lot of hard debates that occur, a lot of hard decisions that occur, and some things get approved, some don't. But in the end, you all get an agreement and go forward. So I think it's really a combination of that relationship building along with the empirical evidence, ROI.
I want to talk a little bit more about this problem statement that you mentioned. Right? There are far more no's that you have to say than the yes that you end up saying, right? So I'm curious about how you structure these workshops or planning sessions to ensure that everyone at least feels that they have a voice, and how do you share power in these settings so the stakeholders feel genuine ownership of the strategy that finally gets decided?
Yeah, I think I learned early on that I don't need to be the smartest guy in the room, and not that I am. But you see a lot of that with technology executives that really want to kind of drive these initiatives. And I think that it's important that you have multiple business departments or leaders that are really championing this. Let's just say we're doing a CRM project, having the sales, the customer care, anybody that's really using the product heavily engaged all the way through simple process development to, requirements, and then even helping with the tech decision. So if you're choosing a specific product, having them involved all the way through, make it part of job, so to speak, to kind of help out in these types of initiatives. I find those being the most successful when it's simply tech. In the old days, right? Throw it over the fence. IT catches it. They do something. They throw it back over the fence. Never gets done rightly. And I've inherited some things like that. Even here at Arctic Glacier, we've had some projects fail really because IT has just been the sole driver of them. And I think that's where the alignment, the involvement, and just the collaboration are so critically important.
Yeah, totally right. So from strategy to execution, let's move to the execution phase a little bit, because it's the reality is very different from a lot of people perceive externally, right? Let's talk about the technology foundation needed to deliver at the speed of innovation. A month in our lifetime is a day in AI today, with the speed at which DeepSeek, Manus, and the models keep releasing. So your business is seeing that on TV, on LinkedIn, and everywhere they go, and they turn around and they're like, hey, so what's your perspective on current state of cloud and digital transformation, especially when you're still managing legacy application, infrastructure, and data? It's the reality.
And it's my experience has been really it's interesting. So a lot of publicly traded larger companies have a lot of legacy technical debt. Now I've been in private equity for 5-6 years. A lot of the companies are new, and so you have a lot less technical debt, and so they're two distinct different problems for sure. So what are you really trying to accomplish? But I think that the consumerization, you brought up the consumerization of IT. So when the iPhone came around and all the different ease of technical products that people can get a hold of. I remember in the early days, Dropbox and all these storage things comes out, and you're managing these huge SANs and all these other things, and people are finding their own storage solutions. Other applications now, people will go buy a Monday.com and start managing things themselves. So there's all this consumerization of IT that's occurring, within the enterprise that I think is a really hard challenge. So I think that you really have to balance offering the right solutions with the right value, and then having that collaboration, right? That buy-in, that involvement to kind of get everybody on the same page. Now, it's a lot easier in private equity, smaller companies versus, say, where I started at, say, Republic Services, which has 50,000 employees, right? It's a lot harder to rein in. So it's a bigger challenge, I think, in larger enterprises. So I think understanding what your goal is and what you're trying to need to overcome. So at Arctic Glacier, for example, a lot of AI, a lot of predictive type analytics, a lot of IoT, a lot of new technology that we've had to integrate within some legacy systems, but we've also really had to do a lot of forward thinking and kind of think what's next and how do we thoughtfully make sure that our architecture is going to support the next generation of needs.
Exactly. And, we hear so much about businesses wanting this agentic AI, no code solutions. And can you launch my app in 4 days? I heard it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But the data foundation, like you mentioned, and the architecture is so critical for any of that to work. So how are you addressing the data quality challenges while still delivering innovation at the speed that is being asked from you?
Yeah, that's a big, big issue, no matter the size of the company, right? Is data quality, data governance, and really users and business owners understanding the need for kind of standard process. When you do a lot of M&A, so as I grew my career, it was heavy from 98 on. It was just as fast as M&A as you can believe, really up to now. So you get a lot of disparate processes, a lot of different data structures, and you really have to make sure that's correct. Because you're right, I want to move at the speed of light. And think of AI. And my whole perception is I want to set up something that allows us to use AI within our organization almost exclusively versus an application. So think about if I want to type in what are my most profitable customers? Who should I price increase? These 70 customers, I need to put them on a route it the most efficiently. Why am I using an application to do that when I probably can use an AI wrapper, so to speak, to do that? But to your point, if you don't have the foundation set, if your data quality and your data integration and you're not moving data soundly through the organization, that's going to be a hard challenge. So we have some lofty goals of where we want to go, but really having to come in and spend a year. I've been here since September of 23. Setting the foundation is what we've been trying to do for the past year and a half. Now is the time to go after this new technology and how do we enable it to really take our business to the next level.
So this also creates question of budget. You need budget to do that. And budget constraints create tough decision between annual support. You mentioned ERP modernization earlier, the digital first experience that everybody wants, and then you want to cut cost and have operational efficiency as well. So there's so many objectives at your table, right? How do you approach justifying and prioritizing these investments when it comes to decision making?
Yeah, I break it down into really three categories. And I've done this for some time. I start with IT. What does IT need to do to create this foundation? Now, this could be I have to have a cybersecurity posture and a variety of tools to help protect our enterprise. It might be that we need core upgrades or cloud migrations or data center move, whatever it might be that you really got to focus on. Two, the second layer up, the business layer. So the business might request AR automation, or I want a new functionality, or I need new mobile. We're a large distribution company. So how do we handle our mobile environment and our edge technology? And then three, probably the highest level is this strategic level. So what are we trying to accomplish as an organization to drive financial results or safety culture, or whatever it might be? And I think you kind of have to start at the top. And I think you have to say, how do you fund these things in reverse priority of what I just described? So strategic, business, IT. Some IT things may be non-negotiable. I can't just ignore cybersecurity, but there may be a give and a take there. So what I try to do is really balance and have, again, a lot of people, a lot of different departments involved to kind of understand the IT needs and how we need to set this foundation, business needs versus strategic needs. And then we come up with a plan that we all agree on that we think that is reasonably balanced, but still allows us to attack these strategic priorities that are going to be critically important to the company.
Yeah. And I think budgeting has been done for a long, long time now. But have you seen any counterintuitive approach to technology budgeting specifically that you have found that it's effective, but it goes against the conventional way of doing this?
A couple things that I've been able to do, especially in private equity, where you have I think you have a little bit more flexibility. Maybe I'm a little biased, but publicly traded companies, quarterly earnings, right? Not that you don't need strong earnings in private equity. These guys like to buy and sell companies and make some money for sure. But there's a lot more flexibility. So there's really two things I've done in private equity. I've kind of walked into situations where they have large legacy organizations, and I mean org structure people. And I truly believe that, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about vendors, and this kind of is a nice segue into that. But I truly believe that I want a small team that's nimble, quick, that's really focused on business objectives and not necessarily staring at routers or doing security or doing help desk. I do like to outsource that. So for example, I've cut 2/3 of my staff in some occasions, taken that money and reinvested it in strategic situations. I've also taken some of that money and gone out and gotten third parties at cheaper rates and have allowed me to still carry on the portion of IT, but really then focus on driving value for the company. And the good thing about private equity is, yeah, we have yearly budgets and targets, but we also have the ability to be a little bit more flexible. So if an issue comes up in July and we talk about it as a team, we can make that work. Whereas it's a little harder, not that it's impossible in publicly traded companies, but it's a little bit more slow. And so I think that's what I've also enjoyed about private equity. So the unique approach to me has been I'm able to focus and lower my core team to focus on business objectives, get rid of operational IT to an outsourced vendor or vendors, and focus on what's critical for the company to succeed.
Yeah, the magic word for me was that even though you're reducing your team size, you're elevating that 1/3 team's role to business. So it's a really elevated role that they're getting now, which is the execution and the steering part of it. So phenomenal.
Yeah, it's interesting in that I don't come from a traditional back. I mean, I have a master's degree in Russian history, spent some time in the government, right? I didn't come from a computer science background and then right into IT. And so I really look for people that can communicate, build relationships. People always ask me, okay, how do you take a Russian, history major and make them into a CIO? And I'm like, well, look, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of just relationship building. I want my teams, I really hire off how well you can communicate, how smart you are in terms of can you learn something because you don't know everything. And that's really more critical to me than going out. I think network engineers and security engineers are awesome, but there's managed service providers that they probably are better fit than my organization. So that's just been kind of my tactic, is to hire people that want to affect the business, and are good at building those relationships and driving those outcomes.
Super. So talking about relationship, let's move the conversation a bit into these technology vendors. Technology vendors are increasingly competing for CIO budgets. What do you really look for in a technology partner that many vendors miss?
I think we all get just inundated on LinkedIn, for example, with all the vendors. And they want to come in and sell you something, and a lot of them just don't listen. And what I mean by that is they'll have me talk about my initiatives for 5 minutes, and then they'll spend the next 25 telling me about all their solutions. So if you're going to come to me how you're going to help solve my problem. And I appreciate the vendors that will listen and not just want to talk to me, talk to my team. Let's talk to somebody on the business side. Let's hear what the problems are and how we can help. And then come back to me with what you're going to solve. And if you're going to ask me to invest $500,000, what am I going to get out of it? Right? What is my return on that? And I think those are the vendors that really offer a lot to an organization that I'm a part of, because I just don't enjoy the vendors that are just, I get you're trying to sell something, I get you're trying to hit your numbers, but you really got to understand the organization before you start offering solutions. Or I don't want a menu. It's not like I'm going into a Chick-fil-A and I've got this wide menu and just have me pick. That's not what this is. I need solutions that solve business problems. You got to learn about that first before you can offer any value to our organization.
Sure, fair enough. Do you feel like IT vendors and partners are doing enough to differentiate themselves in today's market?
I would say, from my perspective and my experience, no. I think it's few and far between. I think of security vendors, it all seems the same, right? I think of software development type, or consulting type organizations. It all seems the same. I think I have a unique vendor set, or if the vendor's not necessarily unique, the person that is the account executive is and knows how to drive solutions within their company, and it can really help us focus on things. I work with a pretty large carrier and they do a lot for us. But if that individual was no longer on the account, I'm not sure that vendor would be of value. So I really think where the vendors differentiate themselves is how good is that account representative and how well they can build trust and transparency with me, just like we do within our own organization. We need that on the vendor side too. But it's interesting. I don't really call my vendors vendors. I truly call them partners. A lot of my partners feel like they're just part of my team, or we're all on one team, and we can talk about the failures on our side, the failures on their side. How do we get through things, enjoy the successes? And I'm just not a big believer in beating vendors up either, because we fail on our side. And so that's where I think that partnership is extremely critical.
Super. Let me ask the $1 million question now, or maybe bigger than $1 million. What would make you more likely to consider a new IT service partner that you haven't worked with before?
If it's a brand new vendor, it is the value proposition. Like we engaged with the new vendor here at Arctic Glacier right when I first started around some AI and analytics work. And they were really interested in learning about our business. They spent time in our ice plants. They spent time with our distribution teams. They spent time learning how our business would work. So I think really that willingness to learn and to listen and to offer up solutions is going to attract me versus some blind LinkedIn, I can save you $1 bazillion, et cetera, that we always see. I don't really like that approach. It's that relationship building. You kind of get a sense of that even from the first conversation, how well that's going to go. And so that's really kind of what I focus on.
Super. This question is crucial because there are thousands of technical providers out there, all vying for attention of CIOs. These providers know that they have the technical expertise, But standing out is completely another thing. For personally, past 18 years, I have been in their shoes. And that's where I started my company Flywheeler to solve this problem. On one side of the equation, we have CIOs and like yourself and your teams tasked with what seems like an impossible like demand, deliver AI, top-notch customer experience, and transform tech solutions, do it in time and limited budget. It's like the impossible problem statement thrown out to you. So this is like the first left side of the equation in my mind. The right side is that you are looking for tech partners who truly want to collaborate, like you said, and share the risk with you and have a track record as well. So what I have seen is that some of the CIOs that I brought onto the show often shared this story that look, we have limited time and so much to do. If we truly find people sharing thought leadership that directly talks to our problems, our industry, things that we need to do, then we notice them and we may give them a shot. But if it's same digital transformation, we do it to take 5 resources from us, it never resonates with them. So I don't know if you have seen that kind of thought leadership resonate with you at all, and that's how you notice partners. How does that work for you?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's kind of what I was alluding to with how I like to work. To me, the companies that are willing to jump in the trenches with you and really understand the problems and the risks and are willing to work through those with you are the exceptional companies, and that's few and far between, in my opinion. Think that, if I flip the seat a little bit, and if I'm the vendor and I'm selling, I get it, right? You've got an elevator speech, you got 20, 30 minutes, you've got, to your point, CIOs and other tech leaders are just inundated with things to do and don't have a lot of time. And the last thing they want to do is listen to another sales pitch. You've got to throw out what you need to do, what you're trying to sell or accomplish. But to me, the best vendors, I just talked to someone the other day that I've known for a little bit, but I haven't done business with in 15 years. And she's in a completely different company. And she just sat and listened to me about what the challenges are. She didn't try to tell me what the company did a whole lot. She just listened. I always get the question, what are your challenges? But I get 5 minutes, right? And then they tell me about other products. She sat there for 30 minutes and listened, took notes, and said, I'm going to have a follow up if you don't mind. Give me a week. I want to come back with maybe some solutions that may be of interest to you. If they're not, okay. I can listen to that. I mean, that kind of resonates with me versus, I really need you to sign up for XYZ or 30 minutes or less. And so it's about, it seems so simple, but it's about, can you build a relationship? Can you build a trust? And if you can, you're going to have a lot of success, I think. And if you act like you're just a commodity, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. Now let's do some fun thing. It is a rapid fire round where I ask a question
Okay.
and in a sentence or less or more. Large transformation project or smaller incremental improvement?
Wow, that's a good one. I mean, obviously, you always like to see improvements, but I think what really energizes me is the large transformation project. And I kind of mentioned one around AI and wrapping up, our data, to kind of, allow business outcomes. We're doing some really neat things in IoT to change our industry around distribution efficiency and really also some top line creating.
All right, question 2. What's one technology skill gap that you're most focused on filling in your teams right now?
I'm sure that you get a lot of answers around AI or security, right? And kind of the same things. No, I need business people. I need people that understand, can look at a P&L. I need people that can learn the business. So it gets back to that communication and willingness to learn. I don't, again, need a bunch of tech rock stars in the organization because I have great partners that have that capability.
Super. What's one thing that an IT partner says or a tech provider says that immediately turns you off?
The first thing is the bombardment on LinkedIn and then the actual follow-up. Hey, you're not answering my, LinkedIn message. But I think once you start talking to a tech company, it's just not listening. It's really frustrating to give up time and be hopeful that somebody wants to listen to what your challenges are when in reality, they'd rather talk about all the different things they do. In reality, I can't buy everything you do. If you're just kind of throwing things against the wall and hoping something will stick, that's really of no interest to me. So it's the lack of bringing value to the table that really turns me off. And when it sounds more like a value prop for them, I want you to buy something versus I can help you. I just kind of shut down and get through it and move on.
Super. Well, that was it. Thank you, Doug, for being such a sport. You answered all the tough questions with all the authenticity. Thank you for sharing the insights. For our listeners who want to learn more, you can follow Doug's journey and insights. All links are in the show notes below. Stay tuned for more conversations with leaders shaping technology and business on CXO Spotlight, powered by Flywheeler.
To catch more such interesting conversations, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music.